Welcome to the Sober Nation FM podcast, where we're putting recovery on the map. I'm your host, Jonathan Sylvester. This show is brought to you by Sobriety Engine. Do you want to take your recovery to the next level? Do you want more support, community, and fellowship? Sobriety Engine is an incredible free online community of men and women supporting each other in their recovery. You can get a ton of great tips, resources, and guidance to help you succeed in recovery and in life. Visit sobrietyengine.com to join today. Sober Nation FM is also brought to you by Recover Health. If you're ready to get fit and start living a healthier lifestyle, all while supporting your sobriety, then you can learn more about having me as your own personal fitness and nutrition coach at rcvrhealth.com. And whether you're listening to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watching on YouTube, please share this with your friends. Follow, subscribe, and leave a review. Nation, let's hop right into today's episode. Today, I'll be speaking with rapper Chaz Smith, a.k.a. Colicchie. Thanks for coming on the show, Chaz.
No problem at all.
So, man, I definitely want to talk to you about your music, and I know you also have a tour coming up. But first, tell us a bit about what was going on before you found your way into recovery and how you actually got sober.
So I mean, the short version is really I just I started drugs at a remotely young age, I guess, maybe like 15, which is I guess not that young, but my progression was very fast. It was very quick. 15 was smoking weed, and then by the time I was a senior in high school, I was doing heroin. Uh, and then really right after I graduated, barely graduated, I just basically was, shooting heroin and smoking crack all day, and just was in and out of jails, in and out of rehabs, in and out of psych wards, etc. And it really was just like a torturous existence where every day I wanted to die. And really I just hit a point because I was broken. I feel like I was broken from drugs and alcohol at such a young age, but I didn't know how to really stay stopped. And I would go into places and I would feel good after a couple of days and be like, okay, I can do this. I don't need to use. And then
Sure.
I would leave and I would be smothered in that gut wrenching, obsession where I just felt like I just had to put something in my body. I had to put some type of chemical or alcohol into my system. And, it really wasn't until, I finally decided to give myself a chance because I've had many intervals of being clean. The first time that I got clean, stayed clean for a year, I was 23. And,
Okay.
so then my sister really was like the first tangible evidence in my life that, it is possible to, not use drugs and alcohol. And, I watched her, get and stay clean. And, now she has over 15 years, and like, that's not my story though, but, I've
That's
had,
awesome.
multiple years clean, a
Yeah.
few times actually. And, but I don't know, it's just the way I came into recovery. It was just really, I was tired of waking up sick. I was tired of going to jail. I was tired of feeling pain. And it was just, I was willing to do whatever it took to not feel that way.
Mm.
That's basically how I found recovery.
That's awesome, man. So, and awesome to hear that your sister found recovery as well, and that she was
Yeah.
able to kind of, show you. I think it's so important for us to see that, like, we've got to see that hope coming from someone else, right? And for you to have someone that was so, close to you. I mean, that's a pretty awesome thing. And I'm sure
Yeah.
she,
Because I mean, like so many of us, we can go to meetings or see people online and be like, oh, they're clean, da 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 da. But like the bottom line is like, I don't really know that person. Like
mm,
I knew how she used, and I knew how bad she was, and I knew, I was with her every day for years, and to see her not be that way anymore, that's really where I got the hope.
wow, yeah, that's an awesome thing. And I know I definitely saw that, like, in some of my friends, before I got sober, like, man, like exactly. Like, I know how that guy used to be. Like, I used to run with that guy. Like, the fact that he's a totally different person now, like, that does give you hope. I mean,
Yeah.
that's saying something for sure. So, I want to ask, because I'm sure there's some people listening that have a very similar experience, obviously. And maybe they're still struggling, like when you said you went into rehab and institutions and stuff a couple times, like, I know, everyone, it takes what it takes, right? Like, everyone
Mhm.
has their own story, but like, if someone's kind of in that right now, like what suggestions might you give them to like what do you think maybe you weren't doing? Like looking back in retrospect, like the times that you really did want to get clean and you couldn't stay clean, were there a couple things that like looking back you think maybe like, man, maybe if, I'd done this a little different or done that a little different. Is there anything you would kind of suggest that someone might take a look at?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was like way younger, and I would go into a place and I would use the same exact day that I left. My advice to that was to really just pay attention and actually listening what people were telling you, because I would go into places and I would hear them say things like, do a 90 and 90. You got to pray, you got to read, you have to go to meetings, you have to get a sponsor. Like I would hear, and this is just my experience and this is just my story, but like
Sure.
I would
Yeah.
hear them, I would hear them say them things, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. See, but so I didn't understand that, addiction involved much more than the drugs I used. So when I left rehab, you know, it was like I was, left to fight this monster, but really didn't have the tools and really didn't have anything to fight it. So I just always would give into the feelings, and I would just always just, like I said, like I like felt like I had to use, and as time went by, and the more failed attempts and more failed endeavors that I had, I realized that I really had to start putting the work in if I wanted to succeed and if I wanted to stay clean, and honestly if I wanted to survive, because it was getting to the point where like so many of us, numerous overdoses, and just I mean,
Yeah.
every day I was on the verge of death, whether I was driving drunk for literally the 1,000th time, or I was laying on a sidewalk with a needle sticking out of my arm. I knew that it was not going to end good. And like I said, just all my efforts were exhausted at trying my way, as far as trying to use in moderation, trying to just use this drug, trying to just drink, just trying. I mean, I just gave up. I completely surrendered and accepted the fact that I cannot, put anything into my system. And once I did that, it was almost like a relief that,
Mm.
like, okay, now that I've found a solution to my problem, I have to be willing to do whatever it takes to keep it.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's pretty similar to my story, and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening, just like you had to take the suggestions that were being given to you, is what
Yes.
it sounds like.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So man, so tell me, so you get clean, you stay clean. So how old were, I know you said you stayed clean for about a year when you were 23, but how old were you when you actually how long have you been sober now?
4.5 years. So,
Okay.
like I said, I had a year clean. I had 3.5 years clean. I had 2.5 years clean. I had a year clean, and now I have 4.5 years clean.
Okay. That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, no. So I was just gonna ask kind of how did so at what point did you start getting into music? How old were you when you started getting into the music
I
stuff
mean,
and
honestly,
rapping?
the first time I got clean when I was 23, real crazy. It's like I didn't even have like friends that did it. I didn't know anyone that made music. I didn't know
Okay.
anyone that rapped or wrote, or
Sure.
nothing. I remember I came home from outpatient one day, and I was watching Music Choice on demand, and I don't even really remember what songs were on, because I've gone through every genre of music over my high school. And then when I was using from like 18 to 22, I didn't even listen to music at all. I just, did drugs.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I started writing almost like in a poetry form. And
Okay, just like over beats and stuff basically,
I
or
mean, I mean, at first just with no beats, and
okay.
I just started writing, and
Yeah.
I liked it, and then I started formulating songs, and then I eventually, I remember like calling someone to get me instrumentals, because at this time, like, technology wasn't even what it is, and
Yeah.
they gave me a bunch of beats, and I just started writing this some stuff, and then I picked this studio out of the Yellow Pages,
Hmm.
and went there for 10 years consecutively, and that was it. Like, no one really taught me. It was all trial and error. I really just, it sounds like crazy, but I just like started writing one day and just never stopped.
That's awesome. Well, so I want to ask, like we talked about suggestions, like had anyone suggested like you journal or do anything? I mean, did any of it come from that, or were you just like,
I,
man, I'm
I,
just
I
gonna sit
mean,
down and
I mean, I probably, but I mean, I even like when I travel and when I speak to people, I even say that, I mean, it doesn't even have to be music. I just think journaling in general is so essential,
Mm.
because I don't know, we're taught to like write about our problems and write about our feelings and write about all that. And, it's kind of hard to put into words, but something magical really does happen when the pen meets the paper. And for me, I think in the beginning that's almost what it was. It like filled like that emptiness inside of me, and it filled like that missing piece, so to speak. And I just took it and ran with it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, I like probably in the past couple years, I've gotten more into journaling, and obviously, it was something that even before I got into recovery, like you hear that it's a good thing, and you're just kind of like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
I think you're right, man. Like, we get that stuff out. It's a good way to just like reflect. And man, that's something I do every day now. I'd agree. I think it's super powerful and definitely a good tool for anyone, but especially people that are in recovery.
Yeah, and I think it's great too for people like myself, because I'm not like a huge talker, and I mean even to this day there's times where I don't want to call somebody and I don't want to express my problems and I don't want to do this, but for me it's either praying or writing about it. It really does just like lift that weight off of my shoulders. So that's another good tool for somebody that might not want to constantly share everything with somebody or everybody.
Yeah, man, that's a great suggestion. I mean, I remember my first sponsor being like, "Hey, man, look, like I think maybe we're talking about the third step or something like that, and just kind of connecting with this higher power." And he was like, "Look, man, like, there are going to be times where I'm not available. Like, some stuff's going to be going on. I'm not going to be available. None of your brothers in recovery are going to be around. Like, no one's going to pick up the phone. And so you've got to create this connection with a higher power so you can reach
Yes.
out. But I like what you're saying, that like the writing is another tool for doing that. You kind of are still reaching out. So I really like that. So let me ask you, I mean, this music and your rapping, like, what role do you feel like it plays in your recovery? I know the writing obviously plays a big role in it, but like the music itself, what kind of role do you think that plays?
I mean, it's definitely, I don't want to say it's 100% separate, even though I would like to say that, but,
Yeah.
it has played a huge part in my own personal recovery, for the fact that, there was nights that I honestly was going to use. There was nights where I was going to hurt myself. But instead, I sat in an abandoned parking lot with an instrumental on repeat for 3 hours straight and just wrote and felt a million times better. So
Wow.
I mean, in that fact, the essence of me doing that, has there's songs that I have that I could honestly say saved my life at that moment in time. So for me personally, I probably would not be where I'm at, and I don't even mean in music. I don't think I would be where I'm at, mentally and spiritually and all that if it was not for my music. So
Wow.
it has played a humongous part.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you, like, obviously, we see a lot of rappers, especially now, a lot of young guys, getting lured into the lifestyle, right? Sex, money, drugs. Like, how did you separate yourself from that lifestyle, early on? And I guess I kind of want to know, like, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. Like, I think one of the things from what I know about you is that you've linked up with some really strong other artists that are in recovery, which I think, man,
Yeah.
that has to be invaluable. But how did you separate yourself from all that early on?
I mean, I really I don't even really remember, but I know that like at that time when I started writing, I was, practicing a recovery program, and they would
Okay.
just say honesty, honesty, honesty. So it was like, okay, well, let me just practice honesty in my music. So a lot of stuff that I wrote about even back in 2005 and 2006, I would talk about past tense kind of, but I was also talking about my new way of life, of the life that I was attempting to live. And I don't know, I just feel like I was going to share my story, so I might as well be as honest as possible, and regardless of how it made me look. And I say this all the time, but like I do have numerous lines throughout all of my, music where, you know, maybe the normal person wouldn't share because it's embarrassing or whatever. But I just
Sure.
felt, like I said, there's just freedom, there's freedom in having absolutely no secrets. And,
Mm.
that's just for me. And, I just, like I said, I just I wanted to share my story. And, it's such, at the very, very beginning. And I really just never put any limitations on it, and just always decided to just really just write what I was going through, write what I've been through, and write what I intend to do.
Yeah. No, man. I mean, I really appreciate because you are real in your lyrics. Like, and it's um not only do I appreciate it like lyrically and just the stuff you're writing, I mean, I think just, being a former addict, I mean, man, just like the grittiness and like I think you're right. Like some people would listen and they're not really going to fully grasp it, but someone that's been there, they're going to be like, wow, man, yeah, like the needle hanging out of my arm and just like, the detail you go into. It's like, yeah, that's some real stuff. So I want to ask you about one of your songs in particular, your song Class Acts with Mac Miller.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, being from Houston, as I mentioned to you, I appreciate you guys sampling Scarface's My Block.
Well, yeah.
So I'll throw that out there. But so man, how did you guys link up to do this song? And did you
Um,
know him or what was that all about?
I mean, not really. So, like I said, that studio that I picked out of the Yellow Pages blindfolded. I mean, there was numerous studios in the city at that time, but
Okay.
it just happened to be the most prestigious one. And,
Yeah.
so, I mean, at that time, like when we made that song, it was nothing for, even Wiz to always be there, and to Mac to be there. And, nothing. I remember I was sitting recording a song, and I seen, I don't know if you're like familiar with his work, but there was a flyer for the jukebox, and I was like, "Hey, Germ, who's that?
Yeah.
Who's that kid?" He's like, "Oh, it's Mac." I was like, "Is he any good?" He's like, "Yeah, he's good." So then I remember he was getting big on MySpace at the time, and, so I just wrote him, and I seen him a couple times there, and nothing. He was just like, "Yeah, I'd absolutely love to do that song." And I was like, "All right, cool." So then
Hmm.
we just met at the studio one day, and I was probably like the third or fourth time that I met him, and, did the song. And, yeah, that was it. And then,
Hmm.
he eventually dropped Kids and blew up. And, yeah, I mean, he had an amazing career.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I've got to ask, man. I mean, not that you guys were super close or anything, but I don't know, maybe you got some insight just on being with him a few times. Like, were you surprised to hear that he had OD'd?
I was, and, like I said, so I seen him during that song, and all that back in the. But I mean, I didn't see him for, I I couldn't even tell you how long, many
Yeah.
years. But, I have two really good friends that are really good friends with him, and,
Okay.
so, I would always ask about him just because of, his success, and,
Yeah.
and the things that you would hear online about, everything that he was going through. And,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, it was shocking to me, drug addict or not. I mean, it was shocking to me
Mm.
to hear that and to see that. And honestly, it like, it kind of, it made me sad when all that happened, for the sheer fact that he's from Pittsburgh, and he was an amazing artist, and, like I said, I have some friends that are real close with him. So yeah, it was just a tragedy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Well, so I want to kind of switch gears here. Last year, you went on a tour, the It Takes a Village tour with
Yes.
B Rain, Casey Makes Music, Joe Nestor, Jordan Meyer, Rim One. And actually, I just spoke with Joe the other day, which was cool. So you guys are going to be back at it this summer. So tell us a little bit about the tour and just what was going on last year and how this all started and just a little bit of the background there.
Yeah, so I mean, last year, so, B Rain had the idea of like he wanted to do a tour and get a tour going. So I mean, he basically did all the footwork, all the, the research as far as, what he needed to do, how to get the venues, how to get the sponsorship, and, he basically just executed it, and then we all got together and went. And, it's such an amazing experience. And like, I travel a lot, for music, as it is. But, to go from just one city to the next and just and do all that, and especially do it with people that you love and respect. Because when I
Mm.
travel completely alone. So I mean, it was like, it was nice. It was fun, had a blast, meeting, so many people in different cities that I've messaged with prior. That was one of the biggest blessings for me, honestly. So this year we're just, doing the same thing, and attempting to do it 2 or 3 times bigger. So we're going to have, believe like 25 cities, and
Oh, wow.
we're going to
Man.
go across the entire country.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's still in the very early, like, developing stages, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, I kind of asked you about this or mentioned this a minute ago, but like, how important do you think it is for you to like have other guys like this in your corner, like, and more specifically, like other artists that are in recovery? Like, what value do you see in that? I guess.
I mean, just the fact that a lot of us have the same goals, you know what I mean? And they really are all like working on something. Like, they're not just like saying they're clean and do music. Like, they're actually all very genuine guys that I consider my friends. And so I think it brings a lot of value to, like, not only my music but also my recovery. And to be able to travel, like I said, especially with people that have the same mind state, like, as you, is is really something that I loved about it all. But they do, and I think support in recovery, for people that are listening, is absolutely huge, because I would not be where I am today if it was not for my foundation that I built when I was real early in recovery, and all the groups of friends that I have. And because like I said, like, I can't do this alone, because anytime that I tried to just do things completely by myself, I really did always fail. So, today I'm still not the best at like asking for help, but I know that like my life depends on it. So like it kind of forces me. And I don't know. I just, like I said prior, like, addiction is much more powerful to me. So I need to really, have people in my corner and have people by my side.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. No, I hear you on that. So, you've got some important roles going on, or many roles, I should say. I mean, you're an artist, you're a person in recovery, obviously, like we've been talking about, but you're also a dad. And so
Yes.
I kind of just wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because, man, like when I see you on social media and stuff, I'll just tell you, like, I'm not a dad yet. But I definitely admire that. Like, you talk about your daughter in a lot of your songs, and
Mhm.
it's really awesome, man. So could you kind of tell us just like a little bit about that journey, and just obviously it means a lot to you, but just kind of describe like what that means to you, and what type of, just how important being a dad is.
I mean, it really is the most important role that I have. And, for those that don't know my story, like, my mother was an alcoholic, my sister was a heroin addict, my father was a heroin addict. And so my mother left my father when I was 6 months old. And to this day, I've never heard or seen from him. Don't know if he's dead or alive or whatever. So, there was always that fear of like being like him.
Mm,
So, I reiterated this a million times, but my biggest fear in life really was always to be a father. It wasn't like this, your average fear. It just, that is something that paralyzed me when I would think about it. And, and then in the midst of finding out I was going to be a father, I remember it very clearly. Like, that first day, I was completely consumed by fear. I was completely consumed by pessimism, self doubt, lack of confidence. I can't do this. And I remember I woke up the next morning, and it almost was like a breath of fresh air. How I was like, I can do this.
mm,
And I can't even really explain it. And I always say it, like, I feel like I've gotten older. I feel like I've matured. I feel like my perception of life has changed. But like, when I say that, like, I woke up and I feared nothing, I really didn't. And since the day my daughter has been born, my life really has changed, and
uh,
for the best. And so many things have brought me joy. But hanging out with her in general is just the absolute best. And so where I live, Brielle's mother lives like a mile away on the other side of the borough. So
okay.
I see my daughter every day basically. So she'll get her for 24 hours. I'll get her for 24 hours. Like, unless I'm traveling or something. And I don't know. She just really is my best friend. She's my sidekick. Whatever I'm doing, like, she's just right next to me. And it's crazy because my biggest fear turned into my biggest blessing. And I couldn't like, I'm not going to say that like I wouldn't still be clean if I didn't have her, because, I got clean before I had my daughter, a couple of years, but, I think that she has escalated every single, angle of my life, as far as, dedication, motivation, even desire for wanting to be clean, desire for wanting to help people. And it just really taught me a lot of things, also like patience, tolerance, and all that. But, she really, is the light of my life.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy that, this little person that I could love so much, because, I was at a point in my life where I truly believed that I never was just gonna like have love like
Mm.
on that level for another human being. And then it turns out that I felt a love that I've never felt ever, So, like I said, it just new avenues of everything, new levels of everything, simply by just, spending time with her.
Man, what an awesome gift. And yeah, I really, like obviously we have to get clean and stay clean for ourselves. Like we know that, but like I get what you're saying. I don't think it's a bad thing to say like, this person in my life or this other thing is also a big motivating factor, and it makes me want to do
Absolutely.
it even better and even more. And I really love how you said like help other people, because at the end of the day that's really what this is all about, right? I
Mhm.
mean, is carrying this message. So I'd like to ask you, man, I mean, what does your recovery actually look like today? I mean, it sounds like you're in a 12-step program. What do you do to maintain and grow your sobriety?
So I do nothing perfect, first and foremost, but, I have a sponsor. I go to meetings. I still probably go to about 3 meetings a week, depending on whether or not I'm traveling. Uh, you know, uh, I still read. I still read literature a decent amount. I try to pray every single day. I usually do numerous times throughout the day. And now I try to help people the best that I possibly can. And I mean, really, it is that. It's just the basics of the program that I was taught. And, like when I say like I don't do everything perfect, meaning that like I don't do all five of them things every single day. Like I get busy, I get sidetracked, but, you know, and just staying connected to a higher power, just like staying connected to a God. And I'm telling you, like it really like sounds like as simple as it sounds, like that is what I do, and being open minded enough to like, to continuously grow like with whatever's going on. And I can say today that like two of the biggest things that has really changed for me really is my gratitude, is that I am grateful for everything that I have in my life, because I truly believe that it could be stripped away and I could be left with nothing. So it's like everything I have in my life, from my daughter to my house to my vehicle to my friends to my supporters, it means the world to me. And another thing too is really just is the way that I view reality and the way that my perception has changed. And even like with everything going on, I'm not even like saying it's like it's not a big deal, but like I just don't really panic. I don't really like let things bother me. I don't let things really get to me. I just try to always remain calm and just have faith that like things are gonna work out. And it really, with whatever I'm dealing with, like it really is like whatever struggle I go through, whatever challenge, obstacle, turmoil that I deal with, it's really not that big of a deal.
Mm,
Like unless it's like a major tragedy that like I'm forced to deal with, but like
yeah.
anything other than that, 90% of the stuff that falls on my lap on a daily basis, like it is okay. It's really not that big of a deal, and I'm not gonna make a fuss about it, pretty much.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like executing the basics.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and man, I don't know about you. I'm definitely like an overthinker.
Yeah.
I can complicate stuff like crazy. And it's funny, man, like a few years, into this recovery deal, like I've had this conversation a few times lately. Like, I just realized more and more, like I can try, like something might pop up, a situation or something, and I can try to like reinvent the wheel and approach it a different way. And then, thankfully, and I'm really grateful for this, I'm able to get that perspective you're talking about and say, like, man, the way to handle this is doing the exact same stuff that brought me here, like continuing to do those same things. It's not, I don't think it's really going to ever change all that much. It might look a little different, but it really is the basics, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that, and because I mean, I'll see people that are like, they'll get so mad or so frustrated or upset about something that they can't control, something that they're completely powerless over. I'm like, and like, I don't even know why somebody would just waste the energy. Like,
Yeah.
I just, when I know that I can't control something, instead of it, making me upset, it actually makes me feel better because I know that it's completely not up to me. So why would I even put any like type of energy or negative thoughts into it, and just like really just like let it be and have the attitude. I'm telling you, it took me a long time to like practice like acceptance and surrender on a deep level, and 95% of the time, like that's really how I am, that's really how I think. Obviously there's the moments where like I don't feel spiritually fit, or I feel you know uh I just might be like have like an off moment and I'll let something get to me. But, for most of the time, it really just apply the attitude like it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you said it, man. I mean, like, I early on in recovery, like I would hear people saying the same thing that you're saying, and luckily, like all this stuff is repetitive. And I think there are times where it's like, oh man, I've heard this a million times, but it's also like, yeah, I need to hear it that millionth and one time, as a reminder, because I would hear people saying what you're saying, like, Jonathan, like, why even give it, why give this person or this situation, like, why even put any energy into it? Like, you can't control this thing, and the reality is, like, you said it, like, it takes work to get there, like, to have that change in thinking. So, man, but before we wrap up here, I just want to ask you, what is one piece of advice that you'd like to share with the sober nation?
As far as,
Yeah, just recovery in general.
I mean, really, I look back, like on my journey, and it really would to be just to be open minded and to like give yourself a chance. And this is coming from somebody, if you just listen to everything I said, trust me, I didn't start off this way. And to really to never give up, no matter how many times you have attempted, to get clean, how many times you've attempted sobriety. Because if you listen to like my story, like when I first started talking, it took me numerous times, and it doesn't have to take somebody numerous times, and that's just me. But I never really gave up. Even the times when I relapsed and I used, there was always like that spark of hope in me that like I can do this, and I'm going to try to do this as long as there was breath in my lungs. I'm capable to change my life, and I practice that today with like no matter what I'm dealing with. It's not even recovery, just anything. Anything in my life that I don't like, anything in my life that's not spiritual or brings me discomfort, only I have the power to change that. So I try to utilize that motto, and I try to really apply that to everything in my life. So, if somebody is struggling with, you know, trying to get clean, and they believe they can't because they've tried two other times before, it really, like, just don't listen to the false, don't listen to the negative pessimistic thoughts that you may tell yourself, because it is possible. And I just, listen, I never believed in a million years that I would ever get and stay clean. I truly didn't. And now that I am here, is like I just, I do whatever it takes to hold on to it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's great advice. Got to keep that positive thinking, and I'm a big believer in just like self paying attention to self-limiting beliefs, like the person that says like they're a chronic relapser. Well, man, like that can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, sometimes they become the chronic relapser, and you have to let that, like you just said, you have to let that hope come in and at least, pretend to believe that there is some hope out there for you, just to get that positive thinking and that shift in mindset going. So you can check out Colicchie's music on all major streaming platforms. Be sure to keep an eye out for his new album dropping this summer. And you can find all the tour dates and information on the tour at ittakesavillagetour.com. Thanks for coming on the show today with me, Chaz.
I really appreciate it.
Be sure to check out the show notes for all the info from today's episode. Sober Nation FM is brought to you by Sobriety Engine. Sobriety Engine is a free online community of men and women supporting each other in their recovery. Visit sobrietyengine.com to join today. This show is also brought to you by Recover Health. If you're ready to get fit and start living a healthier lifestyle while supporting your sobriety, you can learn more about having me as your own personal fitness and nutrition coach at rcvrhealth.com. And again, whether you're listening to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or watching on YouTube, please share this with your friends, follow, subscribe, and leave us a review. Nation, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.